Hi everybody, this is R Chataway87, aka Ryan Chataway, whichever you'd like to call me. This is my first Q&A video, and I thank you all who sent in questions for me to ask, and I hope I answer them to the best of my abilities to where you will understand them and say, yes, he answered my question correctly, and how I wanted to hear it. Alright, my first question is from Razman's Reality. His question is, if I had to pick a favorite director, who would it be and why? And, I started thinking about this question, and it's impossible for me to narrow it down to just one without mentioning a few others. David Lynch, Alfred Hitchcock, Federico Fellini, Martin Scorsese, John Cassavetes, Akira Kurosawa, Ingmar Bergman, Wes Anderson, and Quentin Tarantino. And I'd have to mention Francis Ford Coppola also. But out of all those filmmakers, there's one that is my all-time favorite, and that's Stanley Kubrick. And I like Stanley Kubrick so much. Not only do I own all of his movies, but sometimes I actually pick up a double copy. And the reason why I like him so much is because his obsession with making sure every single frame is perfect, his filmmaking, what he brought to filmmaking, he is considered the first filmmaker to use the Steadicam. You could watch all of his movies and know that he's the one who directed it because he has this style. Even though each of his movies is a different genre, they have the same filmmaking quality, long, parallel Steadicam shots. And they're pretty psychological too, and there's always some kind of metaphor behind it or these little hidden secrets and stuff behind all of his movies. I think there was never a bad movie that he made. I love everything he did. So I hope that answers your question, Raz. Cynical 44. And he has a few questions for me. Question number one is, what are some of your favorite movies based on comics? I'd have to say I love the movie Spawn because I loved that comic book when it came out. I love the Superman. I love Batman. But probably my favorite movie based off any kind of comic book is Sin City, because talk about an adaptation that is nearly perfect. It's like it's right off the page. And so that's the answer to that question. And the second one is, if you read comics, what are some you like? I actually don't read comics anymore, but back in the day I used to read everything from Spawn to Fantastic Four, all the superhero comics I used to read. And so I've always been into comics. I just haven't been reading them the past few years or so. And another question he asked me was, what format of movies did you start to collect first? DVDs, VHS, etc. I started collecting VHSs at first because as I was growing up, my parents would always buy me movies, and my mom was always the one who was more of a movie person. My dad likes movies, but my mom was more of a movie guru, and so she would always buy movies. And after my parents got divorced, I usually, to ease the pain of that, I would just watch movies, and so I started buying movies. And so VHS was the first I had a huge VHS collection, but when DVDs started coming out, slowly I started trading them in and selling them and replacing them with DVDs. And so I hope that answers your question. Is there a particular movie that you've been hunting for years and cannot find due to out-of-print production, status, price, or just never released? There's a few. The Magnificent Ambersons, and that movie from the 90s, Angus, that teen comedy. I've always wanted to own that movie, but they have never released it on DVD. The next question is from Ryan 1988. What are some of your favorite films and why? I did a video probably about 5 or 6 videos ago where I talked about my favorite films, but I'll run through them really quick. And the answer to your why question, you'll have to go back and watch that because I talk too much for just a little Q&A video. But pretty much my top favorite movies is The Godfather, La Strada, Taxi Driver, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Star Wars, the Star Trek movies. I love Bernardo Bertolucci's La Commedia Secca, which is an Italian movie, and it is awesome. I love The Seven Samurai. I don't know if I mentioned already. Taxi Driver, all the Godfather movies, not just the first one. I love Eraserhead. I love Blue Velvet. I love Dawn of the Dead, the original with by George A. Romero, and the list just goes on. Fritz Lang's M. I recommend you just go back to that first favorites video that I have, episode 1, where I talk about my favorite films. I go more in depth about my favorite films, and I think it's a 2-part video, so I suggest you watch that. What other 5 films are you looking forward to seeing this year? I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. I haven't really stayed caught up with the movies that are coming out soon. But thanks for asking that question, because now I'm going to look and make sure and check out some movies that are coming out. And what inspired me to make YouTube videos? Well, you know, I've always wanted to talk about movies in general, and I was always looking for an outlet for that. And then I was like just surfing through YouTube, and I saw Sean C. Phillips, aka Cool Duder, and I also saw Robbie W. Webster's videos. I'm friends with Robbie, but I've never actually talked to Sean. Maybe he just has so many subscribers that he doesn't take time to talk to each one of them. But I really started out watching his videos, talking about his horror movies and all that kind of stuff. So that's what inspired me. Now, Robbie Webster asks me, what are some of your favorite childhood TV shows? Well, I loved The Adventures of Pete and Pete when that was out. I loved Salute Your Shorts. I loved Doug. I loved Rugrats. I loved The Wonder Years. I liked Hey Dude. I liked anything that was on like Nickelodeon. I liked Boy Meets World, Full House, Family Matters. The list just goes on. If you grew up in the 90s, you'll know what I mean by all those shows. Wild and Crazy Kids was an awesome show. Nick Arcade. Those are my favorite TV shows growing up. And 26 Movie Buff. Name some of your favorite films. Once again, you know, The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, La Strada, anything by David Lynch really. But I suggest you go back and look at the video that I made before about my favorite films. I go more in depth about my favorite films. And the next questions are actually questions that my wife wanted to ask me. I guess she didn't know the answer to these questions, and so I went ahead and just said, alright, write them up. I'll answer your questions. And her questions are, what are your top 3 favorite foreign films? My top 3 favorite foreign films are La Strada, The Seven Samurai, and Cinema Paradiso. The next question is, do you have any favorite on-screen pairings of actors or actresses? If so, who are they? Well, other than, you know, like Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall from, like, you know, the old film noirs, a lot of the movies that I watched, you know, there's never really a continual, you know, on-screen pairings between the couples. But, you know, I have a thing for some romantic comedies. I love romantic comedies because they are such, you know, light movies. They're good. They're funny. But I guess my favorite on-screen couple, I guess, is the Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movies that they put together. And also, you can never go wrong with When Harry Met Sally with Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. In your opinion, what is the absolute best movie made in the last 50 years? Without a doubt, because it's my favorite movie, that would be The Godfather. What one movie has changed your life dramatically or for the better? And the reason why I'm smiling when I'm talking about this question is because before me and my wife started dating the first time, we were best friends. And I had been getting her into all these different movies. And we watched Psycho for the first time. It was her first time seeing it. It had been one of my favorite movies. And when I actually realized I was falling in love with her, we were watching Psycho, and I paused it in the middle of it and told her. Talk about a movie that's kind of weird for me to pause and randomly confess your love for somebody. But, you know, told her I loved her, and, you know, we started dating, finished the movie, and now we're married. So, Psycho is a movie that completely changed my life because of that. So, I hope that answers your question, sweetie. Was there a movie that led you to fall in love with movies? If so, what was it? Well, I guess around the time my parents got divorced, I was just kind of watching whatever, just kind of get my mind off of it. But I really loved, you know, war movies. war movies are what pretty much got the start of me with watching movies. And the first one I ever rented or watched was A Bridge Too Far. Some of you might be saying, well, that's not the best war movie. Well, it's not the best war movie, but that's the one that led me into seeing like The Longest Day and Patton and so on. And that is what got me into movies in the first place. And what are my top favorite TV shows? That would be Seinfeld, the best TV show of all time, and I believe that everybody should have that same opinion. Scrubs, The Walking Dead. I really have recently fallen in love with Bones. That's an awesome show. Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations is an awesome show. How many is that? 4? I recommend all you guys to watch those shows, even though I'm sure you guys have seen it. Oh, I can't forget, Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is definitely up on that list. One of the best shows of all time. David Lynch created the show. You need to see that. Alright, well I think that's all my questions that were asked to me, and so thank you all for sending in your questions. I hope I answered them right. Alright, R Chataway 87 out.